Hey everyone, I'm Joe. Today it's time for me to do the last reading wrap up of 2018 for December. Now December was a pretty good reading month. I read 6 books in total by 3 different authors comprising 2 different genres. And those 2 genres are, unsurprisingly for me, science fiction and fantasy. There are 3 science fiction and 3 fantasy. And I'll talk about the science fiction books first, then the fantasy. And the first of those science fiction is Last and First Men by Olive Stapleton. Now, this book is actually the prequel book to a book that I read last month, which is called Star Maker. If you've watched that wrap up that I did for that, you will know that book didn't really work for me. It felt like a very strange and drawn out world building exercise where, frankly, Olive Stapleton just didn't know where to stop. But I was glad I read it because it was very interesting as a concept. And this book is... Now, I liked it slightly more than Star Maker, but frankly not by miles. And I liked it for the same sort of reasons. I'm glad I read it because it's an interesting idea for a novel. This one, unlike that, doesn't focus quite as heavily on the world building to the same level. However, it does focus on the history building. This is a history of alternative Earth, and that is basically the whole book. Is the wars, the culture, the society, the trade, everything else. It's strange, and at times I was wondering why I was reading it, and also why he wrote it, because it felt like it needed to be like sections of a novel or greater series even. It's like the world building exercise that you'd find behind bigger series, like George R. R. Martin with A Song of Ice and Fire. I wonder if he's got something telling him about the history of the world as it is. Because this is what this felt like. It felt like his own private history and world building of something else. It was interesting to read, and I am glad I read it, but it was odd. I'd only recommend it if you want something a little bit unusual, let's say. The other 2 books are by the same author, and that is Second Variety and The Father Thing, both by Philip K. Dick. Now these are volumes 2 and 3, respectively, in the short story collection series by him. There are 5 volumes in this series. I do have the other 2 volumes, 4 and 5, which I will be reading in January. And I'm very glad that I read these, because you may know from over the last year or so, I've read quite a few of Philip K. Dick's full-length novels, and on the whole, very few of them I've actually enjoyed. And I was getting to a point where I was starting to doubt, which I was kind of hoping that wouldn't happen, where I thought, is Philip K. Dick actually an author that I should bother with anymore? Because his books don't work for me more often than they work for me, which was unfortunate. However, his short stories do work for me. These 2 collections were excellent. I would normally talk about a few stories that really stood out to me, but I can't do that because they all stood out to me. I mean, there were maybe 2 stories in each collection that were merely okay. Every other story was fantastic, had great ideas, great writing, had a lot more humour than his full-length novels have, and had quite interesting and curious ways of portraying the ideas. And the ideas were indeed equally mad. Philip K. Dick is known for mad ideas in his books. These showcase them in a more interesting manner, I think, than his full-length novels. So I am really happy that I read these. If you want some interesting and well-written short stories, you might want to look into these, because I greatly enjoyed them. I mean, I will reread these in the future because they were just excellent. They really were. I cannot play these enough. Finally, I've actually read 2 books by Philip K. Dick that I liked without question, and that I will reread. There's not many other books by him that I can actually say that about. And now we get on to the fantasy book, and all 3 of them are by the same author, so this will not take too long to talk about, especially as I'm actually doing a separate review of them. And that is books 3, 4 and 5 in the Memoirs of Lady Trent series by Marie Brennan. These comprise The Voyage of the Basilisk, In the Labyrinth of Drakes, and Within the Sanctuary of Rings. And yes, I personally think the covers are fantastic. I've heard other people talk about the covers because they've got dragons on the cover. This series starts off with an older woman in her 70s or 80s basically saying these volumes are her memoirs. She's a dragon naturalist. She goes out into this alternative kind of earth and has adventures essentially with dragons, trying to learn about them as an actual creature. Because dragons aren't the big, roaring, fire-breathing things in this that they are in other series. And that's one thing I'd like to point out though. Don't expect the traditional dragons where you've got like people in armour and things, battling big dragons and that sort of thing. These aren't. Dragons are just a creature. They're just something that exists. I mean, yes, they're still interesting to people in this world, but they are just another form of animal. Just a big mammal or lizard, so it's interesting but nothing truly astonishing. She loves them and she thinks there's something more to them than what most people think, and she wants to go out and prove that. And this is a world where sexism is still very much alive and well, and even worse than we've got it now. And it's a very, very heavy patriarchy. Basically, it's kind of like Victorian era sort of England essentially, and they're well written with some interesting ideas. They are slower paced than what you might expect them to be, and that is one other thing to note. If you're looking for something fast paced about dragons, yeah, these are not your books, because these are slow paced. Yes, they have their moments from time to time, and especially the fifth one does a few interesting things that I can't talk about because it's the fifth book in a 5-book series. Obviously, I'll give away the whole series if I say anything too much, but it does some interesting things and introduces a few new elements which wraps it up rather well. There will actually be a new book set within this world in 2019 as well, which I'm quite looking forward to. So this is a series that I personally would like, and I would recommend to people, if you don't mind, a book about dragons where the focus isn't necessarily though entirely on the dragons. It's more about Lady Trent. Dragons do come into it, yes, but they're almost secondary in some ways. It's more like the idea of dragons, not the actual dragons themselves, or what's important in these books, which is a curious idea for it. But then again, it is the memoirs of Lady Trent, not the memoirs of a dragon hunter. The focus isn't necessarily, even in the wording, isn't on the dragons, it's on her. Interesting point to note. Anyway, with that said, that is it for all of the books that I've read in December. If you've read any of these books or would like to, then please leave a comment and we can have a talk about them. If you have any books you'd like to recommend based on these, then again leave a comment. All my social media links are found in the description box below. And with that said, that is it. So I hope you've had a nice Christmas and you have a nice New Year, and you get lots of nice, interesting books to read, because I know I certainly had a few. And with that said, that is it for this video. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you another day. Bye for now.